Call this meeting to order and we'll stand for a moment of silence and the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Commissioner Felber is remote this morning, so all votes will be done by roll call. Keisha, do we have anybody for for open forum?
You want to approve the agenda first?
Oh, I suppose we can. Motion. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call votes.
Aye.
Commissioner Schumacher.
Aye.
Commissioner Felber.
Aye.
Commissioner Hulls.
Aye.
Commissioner Danielowski.
Aye.
Commissioner Gray votes aye. Now we'll have open forum.
There is nobody signed up, Board Chair.
Good. Moving on to consent agenda. Bruce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. I have had no request to pull any specific item from the consent agenda.
Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Danielowski.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hulls. Commissioner Felber.
Aye.
Commissioner Schumacher.
Aye.
Commissioner Hulls.
Aye.
I vote aye. Commissioner Danielowski.
Aye.
Moving on to announcements. Bruce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. I'm going to ask Keisha to pull up a couple pictures for you. Normally, when we have new employee orientation on Monday morning, you're not involved. But we do have a new employee starting last week, actually, that I thought I would like to introduce to you. And so if you get a chance, I would like to introduce you to Peach. So Peach began work last week. There's a very happy picture, and there you can also see another one. And this is Peach. So we would like you to meet our therapy dog. You've met some of the police dogs before, but this is the first time I think you've been able to see Peach in training. So I will ask Amanda to say a few words from the microphone as you get to meet Peach.
Sure, and I don't know if anybody wants to pet Peach. She's been up in HHS and petted a lot this morning, but Emily McNamara is the dog handler, and so she's an adult mental health outreach worker, and this board approved the procurement of Peach back, I think it was November 2024. And so we've been waiting for the right dog, researched the right breeder. So Peach flew to us from Kansas last week. She already had a vet visit, so we would like to thank Granite City in St. Cloud for offering free vet services for the life of the animal, and then also Spikes and Hulls in Elk River for offering free pet food and pet toys and pet beds and all things pet for when the dog is in service. And so, yeah, Peach is 9 weeks, and she's been on the job less than a week, and we're pretty excited. She's going to be working with Soldier 6, who will be doing the training for free as well, and going through a year-long training process to be a certified vested therapy dog. So we start that training with socialization, including her being here, obedience training, and then I just got to hear a little bit from Soldier 6 about pressure points and all these therapeutic techniques that she'll be using, again, mostly through Emily's caseload, going out with the co-responder, pressure points, all the good things I don't even know about. Emily just told me that the dog's gonna have doggy massages to keep her up for her game. So anybody want to pet Peach? We're supposed to ask if there's any dog allergies or anybody's scared of dogs.
No.
Nope.
So come on down, and we are going to take a group picture. We're going to have Greg on screen on this screen. Are you okay standing in front of the screen, Andrew? All right.
She's got shark teeth, just so you know.
That's okay.
She loves pets.
Oh, you do have sharp teeth. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Very good.
Any dangling lanyards are at risk.
Nothing better than a puppy.
Stay down here.
I agree.
Rules are
Rules are on the big
can take the
I
dog,
have no
push the
doubt.
dog, but the dog can work and not horse
Don't
people.
worry, we'll have one as well. Good to see you again. Peach will all walk. Peach will get treated. Good. That's a big.
No noise out of the back room at all.
She's real quiet.
All right, if we can have you guys stand over here under the screen, I'm gonna take a picture. And we're supposed to, we're supposed to invite Dan Weber to join us for the picture. So
I told
Dan,
Dan I was
come
gonna
on
put the
up.
dog in his lap, so.
Come on up, Dan, we need you in the picture, so. All right, do you? Yeah.
Commissioner Felber's the dog guy, right?
I'll take a picture with you. Yeah. Just put her in the center. Amanda, go ahead and jump in there. All right. Let's see, we gotta balance this. So Dan, do you wanna go stand by Brad? And you go right in the center, right below Greg.
Emily loves this, by the way.
All right, so on three. 1, 2, 3. Let's Peach, gotta look this way. There you go, one more time. Woo, all right.
Thank you.
Being in a strange environment.
Block off both ends.
Yep, it'll be okay.
It'll be fine.
All right.
She's too analytic.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So, yeah, I thought we'll do that with every new employee from now on. Yeah, yeah.
They'll love that.
Make sure there's no allergies or anything like that.
Oh my gosh, we've done more work on policies for therapy dog than we've done for anything else because legitimately, I mean, you have all of those things, but I remember even now, I have to say 20 years ago, the elementary school my girls went to, they had one of the counselors out of 4 had a golden retriever, but they had a separate office for allergies and everything else, and it's amazing how those work. Or you've seen them in, veterans' homes or senior citizen homes or even hospitals. So it's a legitimate function, and to learn about the training that this dog will have. I mean, it's commensurate to what we do with our police dogs. It really is. So thank you for the support. I thought you'd enjoy meeting Peach. So a couple other things, just a little bit of calendar call, if you want to start there on the end. Just want to note a couple of things. We are going to come back to you on the public health issues with tobacco, alcohol, and cannabis. What I want to note for you is we're going to bifurcate the discussion about the tobacco-free campus. That's probably a separate discussion because there's a timeline if we're going to do any of the other ordinance amendment changes you wanted. And so we'll focus on the possible ordinance amendments first and then return back to the issue of what the tobacco-free. Also note, we are still working on setting up that discussion on solar farms and baseload energy. I think I'll keep those separate because they are, but at least they're going to dovetail. But on solar farm, just note that we'll also talk about the fact that a couple of our townships that have never had solar projects, we're starting to see the market change a bit, and so we're starting to see solar gardens show up in areas where they haven't before. So the question that Lynn's working on is the why, and Mark and Lynn and a couple other folks are doing some research. So we think we want to get a handle. We're guessing it has something to do with those new transmission lines that are going in, that they're probably creating access nodes where it wasn't economically efficient to put them out where they're now going. And so we'll try to get a little bit of information on the why, and then we'll talk about the townships that have expressed some concerns with you and see if there's a response that you feel appropriate for with those activities. For the last, 3 years, Lynn, we've seen a decrease in the ones that we regulate. Obviously, XL Energy and the PUC are still pursuing those very large projects, but the ones that you actually regulate, you've seen a significant decrease in the number of applications. That may or may not be changing again with the industry. So we just thought it'd be good to get a hold on that if that makes sense for everybody. Okay, and then also not on here, and I'm not sure, it must have fallen off, as we do plan next month to come back, and we're going to have, Lorraine's going to have an update for you on elections, and specifically the issue of that you heard somebody ask about, which is the voter registration rolls and how that works, and then we'll close out our after-action investigation and report on last November's election. So we'll have that scheduled for that. And just a reminder, that we are skipping a week. If you remember, we go into our summer schedule, so you're not scheduled for a board meeting on the 17th, but you are scheduled for the County Board of Appeal and Equalization that afternoon. So you have an afternoon meeting on the 17th, and then we come back for the regular county board meeting on, it says the 22nd, I think it's the 24th, isn't it, Keisha? Yeah, so we have a little typo there when you see upcoming meetings, if you just make sure that says 24th. So as we move into the summer session, that's get you updated. With that, I'm going to migrate to legislative activities. A couple of things. We did host Congressman Emmers, one of his staffers last week, plus our federal lobbyists were in. Had a good discussion of the jail improvement project, and we spent most of the time discussing that. Commissioner Felber was able to join us, as was Commissioner Gray. And then we talked about the road projects as well as the park project, just to get everybody updated. And I know that a couple of commissioners will talk about yesterday's event, but again, we had Congressman Emmers and Senator Klobuchar staff there at the event yesterday out at the park. With respect to what's happening at the federal level, we are tracking some of the budget impacts and how they may or may not impact the county. They're a little longer out because they're really talking about next year's federal budget. But for instance, the one you've seen in the newspaper is the House has voted to reduce, for instance, the SNAP program. So we're trying to figure out, and Amanda's working on to figure out what that means for us on the federal level. On the state level, it's becoming more clear, and it's a little bit of a mixed bag. They're very close to wrapping up at the legislature. The tax bill was laid out for conversation, but it appears there's not enough votes to pass, so it's back in conversation today. But there's still talk that they may try to wrap up end of this week or next week. With that being said, we're taking a look as each individual budget comes out and comparing them to that spreadsheet that you saw from the letter 2 weeks ago. On the Health and Human Services side, on the surface, it looks like it's somewhat better than what we thought. Some of those cost shifts have been removed, but there were some last-minute changes and add-ins as well that we have to look at. And then there's also a loss leader in there. So what it did is it didn't shift the costs, but it said if within a year the department can't identify the same savings, then there'll be a cost shift in the second year of the biennium. So even if we say, whew, we dodged that one, it may come back in a year. And that was one of the big ones, right, Amanda? But again, we're going to update that spreadsheet, go through department by department, and as we start our budget conversations, we'll obviously have a clearer picture where things are at with the state. Unfortunately, the ones that we dealt with last year, none of the big ones got reversed. So we'll still have to have that really difficult conversation about what do we do for the, help me with the acronym.
Minnesota African American Family Preservation and Child Welfare Disproportionality Act.
Yeah, real easy to say. So that's the one that we tagged at almost $2 million impact if we're going to comply with it. So that one will be obviously a conversation that we'll have. We tried, and as you know, AMC and Micah tried to change that, and we're not successful. That plus the ESST and the paid family leave are in law, and it looks like that will be in effect starting in January. And then finally, with respect to our activities, there's some conversation. There were a couple things that are in play that I just wanted you to be aware of. One, Northstar, we thought that it was pretty much done. And what we were being told is that the Metropolitan Council would not go any further than Ramsey for bus service. So that would leave Elk River and Big Lake out. Elk River technically is in part of their planning and service zone, even though we're not in the Met Council proper. So we were having conversations. Metro Bus out of St. Cloud, which provides bus service to Big Lake, shared with us that they're not in a position to continue service all the way to Ramsey. They don't have the drivers, the buses, or the financial resources to do that. So we were working under an assumption that we would not have any basically public transit of that nature in the county coming January of next year. Late last week, the Met Council said they're reconsidering. We don't know what they're reconsidering, so we're still talking about that. But it means it's a work in progress. So we're not sure where Northstar is going to come down. And that's something we'll just be tracking and have to react and respond to. On that note, if you're tracking the state legislative activities, there was a very interesting twist somewhat related to that. And that is, unbeknownst to the 7 counties of the metro, the state went ahead and changed the regional transit sales tax allocation or the legislature did, without even informing the counties. So their allocation was 17% of the revenue from the metro sales tax for their own road and bridge needs got cut in half to 8.5%. So as much as we were the outlier and we didn't get part of that tax and it affected Northstar, all those counties who've been using that to do some of the road and bridge projects are also now aced out. So it's basically no oxes safe from being gored right now in the legislature. With that, I'll just see if there's any immediate legislative questions before I transition that I can answer or update you all on. Okay. A couple other things just to wrap out the legislature. The other cuts that we talked about, though, reduction in PILT, reduction in aquatic invasive species, reduction in some of the county state aid funds that Andrew tracks are all still on the table. So we're going to see reductions in several departments, not just Health and Human Services and Community Corrections. As of now, county program aid is not part of that, but again, the tax bill got pulled back this morning, so it's possible that county program aid reductions are also on the table. So still a challenging time, and it's not done yet. With that, just a couple other notes in terms of activities. If you saw, we wrapped up another section of the tuck pointing. If you were here during last week, you saw that there was a lift truck here, and we were working on that. And I think it went pretty well, didn't it, Dan? Good. Good. And then we'll be doing some additional scheduling conversations with you by email as we get into the budget cycle, just making sure that we're not overwhelming you. But today, just again, for foreshadowing, what we do is we talk about the strategic goals that each department is looking at for next year. Now, that's predicated upon, obviously, your determination of whether they'll be funded, but it's the high-level conversations. In other words, where are we advancing versus necessarily the day-to-day operations. And so we'll do a very high-level discussion today, kicking off really the formal budget process as we get into it. With that, I can stand for any questions you might have. Okay, without any questions on that, then just last two footnotes. We did start a major project in the city of Zimmerman last week. So 2 roundabouts being constructed at the same time. It's a very difficult area to get around in, and Andrew will be doing some further engagement, as will our economic development staff, to talk directly with the business owners. And just know I'll be doing some follow-up with Andrew with a couple of you who have heard from constituents there. We were very disappointed that some of the signs didn't get put up before the road was closed, and that shouldn't have happened. And then finally, some of you did get some emails about enforcement of an interim use permit, which you've discussed in the past. Just a very brief note. The interim use permit did allow for operation on Memorial Day weekend, so we do not feel that that's a violation, but we are looking at the issue of the closure time and what is the effective closure time and how do we properly enforce that. So that will be a follow-up. There was also a question about the liquor license, and even though Lorraine explained it, just to be clear, you're going to deal with the liquor license twice. Once was for the remainder of this year, and then the reapplication is in August?
Yep, we're actually in that process right now.
Right. And again, we had to get the liquor license because that was a compliance issue with the previous IUP. So you dealt with that once. It will come back in August as part of the normal annual cycle. So there's nothing that triggers that other than the normal annual cycle.
Correct.
Okay.
Just a clarification on that. And maybe I'm not remembering correctly, but I thought we denied the IUP.
You denied the request for an IUP, but the existing underlying CUP still remains, and that did require a liquor license. So they still have.
I'm talking about the operating on certain days.
No, the underlying CUP does allow for Memorial Day weekend.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. The IUP would have expanded, functions and operations, and that was denied. Okay. As was the amendments to the underlying CUP, which were also denied. So they're still operating under their base CUP. Okay. And again, if you get any questions or that about enforcement, just know Lynn's staff handles that, and then if needed, she works with the county attorney on addressing enforcement issues. Okay. All right, with that, I'll stand down.
Okay, moving on to the regular agenda then. Number 1, consider approval of the interim use permit for home business and accessory building from Blue Hill Rental. Lynn.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is for Joshua Coteau, Josh and Kayla Coteau. interim use permit for a home business and accessory building for Blue Hill Rental LLC. This is in a plat called Brookside Meadows West, second edition. It's in Blue Hill Township on 3.58 acres in the general rural district and within the tributary stream district of Battle Brook. Planning Commission recommended approval with the 9 conditions and the findings of fact.
Anybody discussion? Looking for a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve an interim use permit for home business and accessory building Blue Hill Rental LLC with the following 9 conditions and findings of fact as recommended by the Planning Advisory Commission and listed in the background justification for property address 32192 150th Street Northwest, Princeton.
We have a motion by Commissioner Danielowski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Schumacher. Any further discussion? Roll call vote again. Commissioner Hulse.
Aye.
Commissioner Schumacher.
Aye.
Commissioner Danielowski.
Aye.
Commissioner Felber. Your mic's off.
Aye.
Thank you, and I'll vote aye. Motion carries. Moving on to number 2, consider approval of an agreement with Bolton Mink for zoning subdivision ordinance update. Lynn.
So we had received contract price for $74,886 to assist us with amending our existing planning and zoning ordinance and our subdivision ordinance. This is coming out of the comp plan that was approved about a year and a half ago, I believe. That amount may be reduced. Dan Weber applied for and is confident that we are receiving a $10,000 grant for a portion. And so that will offset that cost that will come out of the Economic Development Fund. There has been another grant that's applied for, and if we receive that, we will also reduce the cost coming out of that Economic Development Fund.
Looking to entertain a motion to approve agreement with Bolton and Mink.
I had a question.
Should we do a motion
I
first?
think we should
Motion
probably do
first.
the motion first, yeah.
Yep. Who made the motion?
I did not.
All right, I'll make an motion to approve an agreement in a not-to-exceed amount of $74,886 from the Economic Development Project Fund.
We have a motion.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Danielowski, seconded by Commissioner Felber. Now, any further discussion?
I have a couple questions. So like when I look on this sheet with the principal and the folks that are here, do these folks live in the township? Are they going to be the best advocates to advocate for township rural housing, rural way of life, or are these people all live in the city? And I know this comes from a person who used to live in a township and now is a citiate, as I'm reminded every time I go to some of these meetings. But you want someone who lives the life, you know, who lives it, breathes it, who decides, well, I'm going to do a part-time job and I'm going to mow my grass as a part-time gig, and you know, I'm going to maintain my property in a way that, you know, suits my lifestyle. Or do these people just have city water, city sewer, and have no clue? I mean, they know how they can get a degree and they're in planning and engineering, but are they doing the well? Are they doing the septic? Are they doing the management of land? Do they understand what they're asking for other individuals and
Right.
the restrictions that they're putting on these individuals to do it? I would never say I'm a farmer, right? I'd never say I'm a farmer. That's a hard job. But I also wouldn't want to tell farmers how to raise their crops because I think that'd be inappropriate. And so that's my point with these people. I never got to interview these people or ask questions, but I got a lot of questions, and I want this to be successful for the taxpayers and the money that we're spending.
Well, and we did interview 2 different firms, and the firm that we selected, one of the people that are the direct project people that'll be working, is on a town board and lives in a township. So I believe they're in Stearns County, was it, Mark?
Yes, so the project manager, Robin Kaufman, really did kind of stand out. She's a township treasurer, part clerk when needed, and, you know, has lived in Stearns County for, you know, quite a long time. So that was kind of a nice grassroots kind of approach, someone that actually serves on a town board, that knows the functions of a township, and especially in Stearns County, where the townships do take on a lot of responsibilities from very large townships in Stearns County. So her background was one of the things that kind of stood out. Because yes, you do bring in consultants from, you know, city areas, and they don't have the same perspective as folks that come from this area. So the project manager is the primary point of contact. It's Robin Kaufman. So she definitely will be an asset in that kind of area for the county.
And Bolton and Meng, to my understanding, as a organization, they represent a broad range. They're just not city representation. They represent a broad range of aspects in local government.
And one other thing that did stand out, you know, when they talked about stakeholder engagement in their proposal, they really did stress kind of the steering committee, recommended making up a steering committee of representatives from the Sherburne County Board of Commissioners, EDA, Planning Commission, and then there's a lot of language in there talking about township engagement. So surveying the townships outside of just county staff sitting there with them, but them engaging with the township representatives to get firsthand feedback from those townships without kind of the county as a buffer, and, you know, so honest feedback, I think, from our townships. So that was part of the thing that also stood out in this proposal from Bolton Mink. And we have built Bolton Mink on different things. They're doing the Pell study for the Highway 25 river crossing. So they did stand out with some of their local assets.
So then I would encourage the townships to get engaged with that process of when they're looking for feedback.
And I think if the principal, Mr. Chairman, I think if the principal is, you know, speaks the township language, lives the township language, that makes a difference. But, you know, that wasn't described in the process of what we're looking at. And if you want it to be successful and you want the townships to stay engaged, you know, speak their language. If I come to a big farmer event and talk about pivots, I'm not going to go very well because I'm not in that business. You know, I'm in the lake business. And so, you know, I just want to make sure this is successful because the township, I mean, as you know, in District 5, there's one township grasping just to hang on and you know, make them, you know, a partner, make them part of the conversation and having that conversation with someone who lives the life that believes in the same things that they're going through day to day. And, you know,
Yeah,
I have a
think
part.
that's a good question, and I'm
Yeah.
glad we did have that opportunity to share that.
There's a motion and a second. I'm good.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Commissioner Schumacher.
Aye.
Commissioner Holtz.
Aye.
Commissioner Felber.
Aye.
Commissioner Gray votes aye. Commissioner Danielowski.
Aye.
Motion carries. Yeah.
Thank you.
Item number 3, budget preparation, department strategic priorities discussion. Bruce and Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. So what we're going to do is go through in order. Keisha's going to pull up the bullets. You have them in your packet. This is an opportunity to think ahead a little bit. So we're talking about 2026. And again, we all know budget's going to drive this because the budget is what fuels the strategic initiatives and the strategic plan. But with what we know today and with where we see things going, what we do is we kind of forecast the big picture items in 2026. So you know what your staff is currently contemplating. This is a chance for you to kind of talk above the waterline, we call it, so you know the tip of the iceberg that you see. And know that, of course, these will change. You have the ultimate responsibility to pass a budget, to put resources where you want, obviously to either change or amend the strategic plan. But we started this process about, what, Dan, 4 years ago? And it's been very helpful. So in addition to sitting down with the nuts and bolts budget, which you're going to do here in the next couple months, this gives you an idea what the directors are focusing on, essentially. So with that, if you're comfortable, we'll just start to go through department by department and lay out what we see as the main priorities going into 2026. Questions on the process or why we're in front of you today?
Basically, this is just informative for us.
Yeah, and a little bit reactive. We're not asking you to approve them, endorse them, whatever, but just know that, you know, as we start looking forward, a previous board had said, we want to know the strategic issues, not just the day-to-day. So how many pencils you're going to buy, we understand, but what are you going to do with them? And so that was the impetus to start thinking about this. and to really to put some meat on the bones in terms of where the organization may or may not be going. So you'll notice some of these are retrenchments, given that some programs are sunsetting. Some of these are aspirational, and when they are, they may not have resources behind them, and that's fine. That's for the conversation. And then some of those are just taking what we're doing now and saying this is where it leads to. So, okay. With that, we'll start with Administration Human Resources. So our first priority is to implement, obviously, the budget that you'll pass this year, but noting for the board that we see at this point that there's going to be very significant state and federal restraints on that budget, and probably in some cases very significant retrenchments. So we see it as one of our primary tasks next year at your administration is to implement whatever decision you make. Related to that, number two is that this is the year that we transition essentially completely out of ARPA. As you know, we do have a couple of things that are coattailing, but that is going to lead to some conversations. So the previous board direction was to essentially roll some of these onto the levy that you want to continue, and those will be obviously a conversation for the budget, but then others we anticipate will be sunsetting some activities since they're no longer funded by ARPA. I will tell you that we had one of the most complex ARPA programs in the country. I think we were second, Dan, in number of discrete programs or activities.
Counties ourselves.
Yeah, second in the U.S. So we had a very complex program. Dan's done an amazing job of tracking all of that. The accounting, as you can imagine, the feds finally caught up to the money, and so the accounting's been a nightmare. I think last week he spent 2 days on a conference call trying to figure out why it was kicking out our quarterly report. You got that figured out, right?
We're good.
Okay. But you know, besides all the counting and everything, you know, what you need to know is the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, but we are transitioning out of ARPA. So at this point, it's not quite in the rearview mirror, but what you'll hear when we get to the budget conversation is anytime ARPA comes up, it's going to be, do you want to continue using essentially local dollars, or if we can find other grant dollars where ARPA dollars were used. An example, if I write, we used ARPA for the extension position, right? So an example would be we've used ARPA funds to help fund the joint powers arrangement we have for University of Minnesota Extension ag educators. So that money no longer exists. So a discretionary conversation with the board is, do you want to continue that? And then how do you fund it? So those are the type of things I'm articulating. Third is to continue to pursue the legislative priorities that you determine. At this point, I would say there's a better than 50-50 chance you're going to have to struggle with making up the financial differences for a major jail renovation project. But that's, you know, a good opportunity. If we get some federal funding, we'll figure out how to do it since Joel has raised that. We also anticipate if there is a bonding bill, there's a good likelihood that we'll have a little bit of funds in there for the 11 and 10 project. But beyond those, again, we continue our normal process. Shifting to human resources, just a couple of things, and Tammy's here to correct me. In fact, Tammy, do you want to read these, or do you want me to do it? You go ahead, yeah. You can speak more effectively than me, so.
HR has identified 3 major priorities for 2026. Implement and navigate the new state-paid family medical leave law, PFML. It's effective January 1st, 2026, and absorb additional workload generated by this new law within current HR staffing levels. Participate in and manage union negotiations with 9 bargaining units for years 2027 and beyond. And develop and implement dynamic recruitment and retention strategies in a highly competitive labor market. And I think I would add also, and in difficult economic times. Thank you.
And on that note with the labor market, of course, we do have a closed session scheduled for today. You'll notice that we are going to do the workshop first, so Commissioner Felber can participate in the workshop. But we are not allowed to have a remote participation in a closed session. So that's why it's a little clunky to come back from a workshop, but just be aware that's why. So we'll cover that then. And then the last one we want to highlight is the what's going on with economic development. Of course, 2 of the commissioners are more closely aligned with this than I am, but we do expect that we'll be continuing the strategies that have been laid out for improving the economic base of the county, especially including the closure of Sherco. On that note, or on that point, that last point, I did want to note one of the most disappointing things in the session is that the state of Minnesota, the legislature, is on the cusp, I think, of basically shutting down data centers as a viable future business activity. They're trying to get money to close up, obviously, the deficit at the state level, and so they're planning on sunsetting current tax exemption, a sales tax exemption for data centers on the energy they buy, with very large, what I'll call mega centers that have purchased property and were planning on expanding in Minnesota. They've all put their projects on hold because this is a very substantial increase in their bottom line. And so you probably saw Amazon literally walked away publicly. Facebook has said they've got a building actually shelled out, and they're saying to the state, we may not even complete it. So, you know, some of it's negotiation, and we'll see where it ends up. But there is a possibility that this last item may become more significant, unfortunately, and not of our doing, and not of the city of Becker's doing. So, questions on administration, human resources, economic development? Okay. With that, we'll turn to the county attorney.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Good morning. We've identified 5 issues and priorities. Most of them are interrelated. First, recognize the complex litigation and need for associated professional services and costs associated with increased jury trials. We have and continue to have a level of sophistication in terms of the legal issues that we're dealing with in our office. This is in a number of civil areas, which while we try and strive to maintain robust legal representation for the county, there are certainly benefits at times to drawing on skill sets of those who practice in very specific and unique areas. So our ability to draw on that. I would note also that certainly with the number of changes we have seen with changes to mental health evaluations, forensic examiners, Rule 20 evaluations, our office has, and I would say perhaps more than other offices do, but I think for good purpose, really scrutinized and challenged certain evaluations, and at times when we've deemed it appropriate, have sought experts to conduct an additional evaluation to determine whether or not that evaluation should stand. That requires additional resources and costs as well in order to maintain where we can prosecution of cases that are appropriate. And so that is one of the things that we continue to look at. I would note also that we've had a number of legislative changes in the last several years that require additional legal review in our office. We have different forms of expungement. The Clean Slate Act, post-conviction review has changed, clemency review. We have the Minnesota Rehabilitation and Restoration Act, which now also can require other resources to be drawn from our office as we look at what's happening with individuals who are already sentenced and incarcerated. All of these things have changed the landscape of our office and how we have to respond. In addition, the litigation that our office has seen has increased, where on average we were having 12 to 14 jury trials. In 2024, we had 23. We're on track with 10 so far this year. Obviously, when there's a lot of litigation, that certainly is something that the whole staff has to accommodate and address. And so these are taxes on our time and resources, and so we look at how to best staff, how to create processes, streamline where we can. Additionally, I've also noted that we want to develop a strategy and approach for an internal office leadership structure. Obviously, with me taking this position fairly recently, there's evaluation going on right now as to staffing, the best way to provide the services that we do, not only in our prosecution, but also in providing counsel to our various departments. We continue to want to put resources in to cross-train, to acquire better knowledge, especially in the area of civil practice. And one of the other things that I've also noted for the board is investment in digital storage to meet the needs of the evolving data retention requirements and the bandwidth with advancing technology. We know that when technology advances, so does the creation of data. Creation of data comes with it the intended issues of that storage of data, how we deal with it from a data practices standpoint, and also how we fulfill our discovery obligations and our retention requirements. So these are all things that as we go forward, more data is created, we have to figure out how to address it, how to store it, how to deal with it. So those are some of the things that we have noted for our office. Thank you.
And then wanted to add, related to the attorney, but not necessarily specifically under her purview, we've noted on the budget some other things that are going to fall within that purview. So we have a very large number of court-appointed attorneys, and that's become a major issue. I don't know of any other contract that has essentially doubled in cost over the last 5 years. But court-appointed attorneys went from basically $80 an hour was the baseline to now $150 an hour. And that's something that we've had conversations about and trying to figure out what that looks like. In addition, Don mentioned the competency restoration, or Rule 20, and that continues to be an evolving area that we're responsible for the costs. New to Minnesota, forensic navigators that we're going to have to foot the bill. And that's, do you want to try to explain that? Or
It's essentially a program where individuals, if they have incompetency or through a civil commitment process, there is a person assigned to them to assist with providing specific services to try to find placement. Some of the procedures have been rolled out without actual practice or staffing, and so that has been a challenge. I believe, and we've now started to see forensic navigators in cases. They are few and far between across the state. And so there is much to still be done and much to learn, and of course limited resources on where individuals can go and what their various services are and can be. So we've had some discussions in different committees and looking at the issue, but there's a long way to go for all of it.
And then I'm not sure, Jarvis hearings, are those also competency restoration, or?
One thing that has changed with the newer landscape as well, so Jarvis refers to essentially a court order to provide or to administer neuroleptic medications to an individual. Previously, that had only been something that could happen through the civil commitment process, whereas now there's a component that would and does provide for it within the criminal case as well. That's obviously a new procedure, and frankly, between the counties and the state entities, figuring out what that looks like. So there's been a lot of changes for us to be responding to really on both sides of our office.
So as you can tell, there's a lot of things going on. It's not just the old criminal and civil. And unfortunately, a lot of these are cost shifts or new mandates without funding that we'll have to address in the budget process. Any questions for Don? Okay, let's move on to the Auditor-Treasurer.
Not mine. You might want those. Mine are here. Good morning, Commissioners. The Auditor Treasurer's Office has identified 4 points that we would like to prioritize this year. The first one being developing and implementing processes and procedures for the forfeited properties due to the Tyler ruling, and cannabis license registration due to judicial and statutory changes. Possibly realigning job duties as necessary to meet the strict timelines. Both of these projects are very staff intense. There are no set procedures out there, so it's a work in progress on both. That will be a big piece for us in 2026. We are also need to Continue our leadership training and succession planning to ensure stability and quality of services are being provided to the county through the Auditor Treasurer's Office. We have several staff that are of the age where they can possibly retire within the next 3 to 5 years. So that's a very huge knowledge drain for us, and we need to make sure that we are ready for that. We are going to continue building the future election equipment fund for when we're required to replace the voting tabulators. That equipment life cycle is 10 to 12 years, and we are going into our 9th year in 2026 with our Dominion equipment. So we are looking at 2027 to 2028 doing that replacement. We are also would like to continue to work with the sheriff on their conversion to ADP workforce. Now for their time cards, that will help my payroll staff save a lot of time and get that transition going. It has been a work in progress with sheriff and ADP. There's a lot still to be done there. It's just been a really long process. So those are our major projects coming up.
So one of the things that we want to foreshadow again is building up the fund to replace election equipment, of course, is critical, but it also leads to that strategic priority. So if the board feels like the state currently doesn't have enough options for election equipment, I mean, the state only usually has, I think we have 3 now, right?
Correct.
This would be something that we should talk about because it's not just a budgetary issue. It would mean, hey, state, you guys need to make sure that there's good equipment available in 2 years. So right now, we're limited to 3 vendors. That's just the reality. Doesn't mean we can't change it, but maybe that's something we talk with AMC about, Secretary of State about, and say there's got to be other, vendors out there. So otherwise, we have very, very limited capabilities for you guys to make decisions other than what the state approves. So.
Great. Any other questions? Thank you.
All right, Ted from Building Facilities.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, board members. The 4 projects we're focusing on here in 26 is the one last repair of the parking lot. I guess it was used as the staging area for the 2018 remodel upgrade. We're working on upgrading our domestic hot water systems, mainly in the detention area, but other locations at the campus here. We will be adding the much needed redundancy in the hot water for the jail, which has been an issue in the past for us. Continue to make masonry joint repairs throughout Central Campus, as you probably have seen. That is going on currently. And the never-ending battle of upgrading aging HVAC equipment. These budget priorities were created based on our need due to failing or failed assets. We did a facility assessment study with Krause Anderson that's giving us the ability to create a 10-year budget plan, help us be a little more proactive in these projects moving forward. We have cut back on our contracted cleaning staff to help with the costs associated with that. I've been collaborating with other departments, maximizing the use of county staff and equipment when possible instead of paying these contracted fees. For example, Public Works has been helping with our fleets, doing the maintenance on them, taking care of them instead of sending them out to, we were using AJ's Auto. Again, Public Works is gonna help us with lot sweeping, crack fill, seal, items there. So just trying to maximize our staff, our equipment, get the most out of what we have in-house here. Any questions?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. On that, on the consent agenda, didn't we buy new boilers today? Or didn't we buy?
I think we bought the water heater, didn't we?
Water
Ted?
heater.
Yes, we bought boilers, water heaters for that one priority. However, this is a larger project. We have issues with the piping in our recirculating hot water line. So this is one step into a larger project.
That was my question. Thank
And
you.
they're pricey too. They aren't like
Yeah,
buying
I
one for
see
your
it.
house, yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to find.
Well,
it.
your house is probably, that's about the size.
Oh,
of
no,
it, so, yeah.
no, just use fire, wood. Thank you, I didn't have any of them.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I did have a question.
Danielle.
Thank you. On what's in front of us, it ends at number 4 with upgrades to the aging HVAC equipment, but you then listed a few other priorities, and I think an important one to get on that list is number 5 in regards to trying to make sure we adhere to what we learned out of the needs assessment for how we can do that 10-year plan. That probably should be on that as a.
Yeah, that's kind of why I added that last part. You know, it's, the plan gives us that ability to be proactive, to see it, to not miss it.
Yep.
Something slips through the cracks, and next thing you know, it's failed, and now it's reactionary, right? So,
That's what I
that
say.
is
I
being
think
laid
it's
out
to be on there.
in a plan, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, we can adjust this. This is, again, going into budget. You guys have to decide how much of that 10-year plan you can afford, but
So it needs to be on there.
yeah. And we'll make sure, that, again, if it's aspirational, that it's noted so that there's no assumptions there, yeah. Good job, Ted.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is County Assessor Michelle.
Not trying to, sorry.
Good morning, Commissioners. The County Assessor's Office has 3 priorities. The first one is our continued work with our Schneider, which is our beacon product, along with our MSIS, our vendor for our CAMA tax program. MSIS currently is looking at a web-based product. They're slowly integrating each of the different programs to be web-based. So my dream and goal in the future is for the appraisal staff to be able to utilize our beacon product while they're out in the field, click on a parcel. It will bring them right back to the CAMA product, and they can do their data entry while they're out in the field. So the goal, hopefully, in the next couple of years in this development is we could eliminate some cost to our budgets because it'll allow them more flow or a more streamlined flow, and then less time doing data entry once they return to the office. But we do know that this will take a couple of years since MSIS is slowly integrating their program into the web-based. So at this point, there's no cost to our budget that we're looking at, but I just want this on your radar that at some point we may be looking at some changes in our budget for this. The second one is to cross-train our appraisal trainee staff. We currently have a public service specialist that now has moved into the trainee position. I would like her to become knowledgeable with our agriculture class properties, to work with our agriculture specialists, to ensure we have someone else trained in the office that is knowledgeable in this area. We never know when somebody may leave or move on, and this is a way to have some cross-training so this trainee would be able to perform those duties. In the next 3 years, we're slowly transitioning her to learn the duties and also to assist in other areas. As you know, we have a vacant appraisal position in our office, and the hope is that maybe this trainee can also assist with some of our new construction in some areas, just help out in some of those small areas. I can't take her completely from some of her front duties as well. She's doing both duties at this time, but at least to help out with some areas in the office. And then also to continue working with our public service specialist staff to continue with the cross-training in that area with the plats and splits and combines. So we have some well-rounded staff in the office. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I did have one question. In regards to those splits and lot joining, is that something that, do we look at occasionally to see where we can go in and be proactive when we know that there's issues with some of these smaller lots that even have structures on them and are part of the process? I think we have one coming before us. That why not join those two?
Sure, we encourage the taxpayers when we have those conversations with them. If they're two platted piece of properties and they are able to join them, we encourage them to do that.
Okay, because I do have, especially around lake properties,
Mhm.
that's a real big issue. There was a property in my neighborhood that was one of those that had the lot split. The house was on one part,
Mhm.
garage was somewhat in the middle between the two. And then when they went to sell the property, they moved the garage onto the second one. The people that bought the property thought they were buying the whole thing, because why would you not when the garage matches the house? And then found out later that they didn't. And then it became very difficult for them to do anything
Mhm.
because of the limited size
Correct.
of what that, I mean, it's a 20-foot front and it goes a little deep, but it's not easy to do things with those. So if we could be proactive in that regards, I think it would be helpful.
Sure.
There's also one down at the end of my block that is on 3 separate PIDs, but yet the house kind of sits in the center of the whole thing, but yet that hasn't been combined.
If they're legally permissible, we encourage it.
Okay.
There's some areas where if it's meets and bounds and then they have a platted, then there's a whole different legal issue that gets involved in those.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Yeah, on that, speaking of that, just one thing you want to remind people on a regular basis is really look at your closing documents. One of the things we keep running into with properties in Sherburne County is that after the purchase is complete, people find out there are restrictions on that property. So you need to look at your closing documents to make sure that you know exactly what you're buying. It's very, very important.
Yeah, that's a great comment there, so.
Yep.
And just a reminder again, you're going to be seeing Michelle in 2 weeks for the Board of Appeal and Equalization. So you get 3 wonderful hours with assessor staff, so.
Looking so much forward to it.
Yep.
It's pretty encouraging this year, so.
All
Is
right.
that it?
Thank you.
You good?
And I think Ms. Higgins is going to present for Community Corrections.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sorry you don't get Corey. So our first priority is acquire and implement Power BI software to enhance data gathering efficiency, improve accuracy, and provide actionable insights, enabling data-driven decision-making within community corrections. This request would be funded with levy dollars, which is approximately $250 for the training and $75 for the license. Essentially, after legislative changes in the last couple of years, community corrections is required to provide far more detailed data in our comprehensive plans. And in order to better understand and evaluate the data, multiple counties are utilizing Power BI, and we would like to ensure that Sherburne County is able to supply a similarly set up format, as well as develop future strategic priorities based on the data that we calculate. The second one is implement a process for the release of clients from prisons that qualify through the Minnesota Rehabilitation and Reinvestment Act, or MRRA. This request would be fully funded with non-levy dollars. Also, based on new legislation, Community Corrections needs to develop and implement a new process for the early release of clients to the community from Minnesota Correctional Institutes. Probation officers will be required to participate in the multidisciplinary process of creating release plans for clients, conducting bi-monthly case plan reviews, and determination of earned compliance credit. And our final priority is evaluate the current risk assessment tool, the RACI, specific to impaired driving offenses, to measure the validity and reliability, and if needed, explore alternatives. And this request would be fully funded with non-levy dollars. Community Corrections consistently strives to ensure that we are conducting valid, current, and effective risk assessments on clients who are being placed on supervision within our department. We currently utilize the RACI, which stands for Research Institute on Addiction Self-Inventory for driving while impaired offenses. And with the consistent inflow of these offenses being placed on supervision, we want to regularly evaluate our risk assessments, and this coming year we want to focus on the RACI or on other current assessment that would help us evaluate the clients. Any questions?
Questions for me?
Mr. Chair, when you say that it would be funded with non-levy dollars, where do those dollars come from then?
There would be NOAA cost. So essentially the second priority with MRRA, we're utilizing staff that we currently have to be able to come up with those plans and meet with the inflow of new clients. And same with the risk assessments. It's our current staff that are looking at the different options, and currently the RACI does not cost any money.
And just to note again, what Mia is talking about with non-levy dollars there is currently the department does not receive levy funds. We were able to zero that out because of the state grant. But again, we're looking at, even if we balance it out, a readjustment of $750,000 because of that state formula. Now, we won't have all that impact next year. We're hoping it's going to be in the $400,000 range because the state's talking about doing a 3-year average on the formula versus 1. So some of that, again, it's in-house staff time, but we'll have to talk about what the levy support for community corrections is going forward. The other part of the legislative ask, which I think is going to happen, is they're either delaying or removing the mandatory fee reductions.
They're delaying it
Delaying
until
it.
2029 instead of 2027.
Right. So we'll have the potential to look at revenue, but you also have that 2 issues. One is the state is moving towards getting rid of certain fees. And the other one is there's the affordability. I mean, we can raise the fees, but if people can't pay them, they can't pay them, right?
And part of the legislative changes requires that we cannot raise any of the fees that are set.
So, hands are tied in a lot of ways, but currently these are things we can do within the existing support structure.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Sure may. Commissioner Felber?
Yeah, I don't have a question, it's more of a comment. Having been watching the MRRA since it was originally announced, I am 100% certain that the reason for the MRRA was to close down the penitentiary in Stillwater. In the long run, I mean, when we're looking at this budget for community corrections, in the long run, what we're going to have is we're going to have a larger population of convicted criminals who have a higher tendency towards regular criminality in our communities, and we're ultimately going to have the money cut. So we're really going to have to look at, in the future, community corrections is going to cost us more, and we'll possibly need more people to just keep up with the pace of people being released to the street from the much smaller sentences, shorter sentences.
Okay.
Someone here, there's some good news, I know, but you're hearing a theme. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Got a question, Brad?
All right.
For Mia?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll transition to Health and Human Services and Amanda.
Morning, Commissioners. We have 3 broad priorities and fairly wordy sentences. So the first is to prioritize the safety and well-being of children and families through prevention and early intervention through programs like family group decision-making, parent support outreach program, mental health services through our newly created therapeutic services unit, or prevention through community family resource centers, working to keep individuals and families out of crisis and serving clients in the most cost-effective manner. I will note that all of these programs listed are either grant-funded or revenue-generating. Number 2 is to champion fiscal responsibility by working to capture additional sources of non-levy revenue and using technology to maximize our billing and minimize errors. And number 3 is support our aging and disability clients through an integrated services approach by utilizing internal resources such as our mental health action team, housing staff, pointers, clinical social workers, and our 2 waiver coordinator positions to mitigate crisis situations and avoid costly high-end services. We will accomplish this through rate setting, through residential waiver services, placement coordination for clients with complex behavioral and medical needs, service coordination to support home and vehicle modifications, and approval of consumer-directed consumer support case plans. Again, all of these, by keeping an eye on it, we're able to control costs on these mandated services.
And I should note that there is some funding for modernization, systems modernization at the state level. I don't think we'll see it anytime soon, but there's possibility we finally might get rid of the state green screens, right? Is that for the MAXA system or SSIS?
SSIS, there was broad support on replacing SSIS. It came with a $40 million price tag. $35 million has been tentatively approved. And the state has a great reputation of
Messing
technology on one foul swoop.
I was looking for something positive,
we'll
so
see.
yeah. Yeah, if you've heard the horrors of stories of the green screen, so that we thought we might see.
Social workers waste hours just waiting for their things to load. So, thank you.
All right, next is information technology. Drew.
Morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. The general through line of IT's strategic budget priorities are effectively helping to support our folks do more with what they have available. You've already heard a few mentions of technology and other strategic priorities as well, and you will continue. That is really the look that we're taking into 2026, and that represents in our numbers here. So starting off with automation and optimization, other departments have already mentioned the ability to actually reduce staff time that's occurring with some of our manual and replicable processes. We have existing technology that we can use and we can drive more support into to help support that, both in the change in their process, but then also just bringing in machines to help with the areas that humans are not necessarily as good at. Replicable, deep processes, things like that, that just having something do that automatically with human control or checking on it really can help speed up that process. It also extends to our staff too. We're looking at every role that we have, seeing where their current skill communities are and where that role is kind of bounded, and how that really plays into IT in 2026 and forward, as opposed to the past views of where IT was. That's a really important process that means reassessing every position that we have when it opens up. Hopefully not often, but when it does, ensuring that we actually review that and look at whether the grade is correct and then what the duties of that role are and how we can make sure that we're aligning to meet the needs of our staff members as they try and do more with what we have available right now. That also leans very heavily into our second point, expanding partnerships. This both includes our internal stakeholders here, but it also includes our vendor communities and viewing them as partners here as well. In turbulent economic times, government contracts are the gold standard. Our checks are going to clear, and that is an advantage that we can use when we engage with these vendors to say, this is a stabilization effort for you. You know that we're gonna be here for several years to continue. So let's sign longer agreements. Let's stem cost increases or drive cost reductions as we go through that. And let's ensure that we're getting the most out of these, including additional professional services, additional options within these suites, things like that, that we can use this environment to really help support our negotiations with these vendors. A very large one in 2026 is Microsoft. Our enterprise agreement comes up then. I recently went through that at the City of St. Paul. There is great opportunity to get more from Microsoft when you do this, because simply put, we're not the biggest customer that they have, and giving us more to ensure that we stay with them as opposed to look at other things is an easy way to bring in additional services, dollars, or professional services into these agreements and help support our staff. This also looks like driving and increasing the partnerships with these staff members. We've mentioned technology a number of times before. We have a great set of department heads here, and there are amazing partners already with me in my 7 weeks on the job. And we really have a great opportunity to continue to build that partnership and to have IT be integrated in these business processes from the start and help really support, especially as new mandates or new things come down from the state, how can we actually build those into technology so it's not figure it out and then put the technology in. It's work together through this to help ensure that that process is as least impactful as it may be. And the last priority that we have is ensuring that we can do this all in a safe and secure way. Sherburne does have an increased risk profile because of our presence in the news media, mostly driven by our detention center. That means that people pay more attention to us, and the greatest deterrent that governments generally have is just not being as big as somebody else. In St. Paul, we always used to say that everybody focuses on Minneapolis, so we didn't have to worry about it. There still is some of that here, but there is more attention that's being driven to Sherburne County. So ensuring that we are safe and secure in our actions and supporting our staff to engage with technology in a way that limits as much risk as humanly possible is a huge priority for us and is a great opportunity to do things like review our disaster recovery and continuity of operations, plan, and then also to make sure that we're using these existing tools as well as other vendors to really try and support and engage with technology in as safe and secure way as possible.
So just a brief example of goal number one here. You may have noticed that we lost Anthony recently. He went on to bigger and better job opportunities, so we're all kind of bummed because he was very well respected and liked. And so Drew immediately is evaluating that open position, kind of reconfiguring it, recrafting it. We also have the open database administrator position as well. So there's that optimization, specifically when we have shifting IT and staff needs. That's exactly what we do. So there's a good example right now that we're dealing with.
Any other questions for Drew?
Mr. Chair, I do have one. Drew, I was just curious in looking through this. I don't see you calling out specifically AI as a concern as what's going to be. It's just kind of like moving so fast, and I'm just curious if that would be something to add in here as a, trying to make sure that we're on top of that as best we can.
Absolutely. Mr. Chair, Commissioner, I heard and I appreciate the feedback on there. The main concern that we've had with AI is a lot of the use cases seem to be a bit more flash and a little less substance. We're part of the Government AI Coalition that has a whole committee working through use cases on there. It's an opportunity for us to hear what lots and lots and lots of different entities think AI can do, and then try and pull out the pieces that are really impactful in Sherburne County, not necessarily City of San Jose, for example, and really see where that opportunity is. It is a moving target, and I absolutely hear that feedback, and we'll incorporate it into our strategic priorities.
And I think that, there's good uses, but I think there's also a lot of nefarious uses that are going to come of it that we need to work on protecting ourselves. Just having a conversation with Commissioner Hulls in regards to how this technology can literally destroy someone's credibility, or someone could clone, or isn't cloning is a word, or replicate, and they'll think it's coming from us as a county or something. So I'm just wanting to make sure that we're eyes wide open on this.
Absolutely. Appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions for Drew?
All right.
Thank you, Drew.
See, it wasn't so painful, was it? He's like, what do I need to do to prep for this?
We're an easy group.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Felber.
I would mention, along with Ray.
Oh, we lost your volume.
Can you hear it now?
Now we can, yep.
Okay. The last couple of phishing attempts that I've had on my county computer have been from what looks like a cloned government account. So just mentioning, be alert for that.
Thank you. Lynn.
Good morning again. So from Planning and Zoning, both Dave and I will present our items that include planning and zoning and, of course, solid waste. We're going to ensure in 2026 that the planning and zoning budget, including the solid waste budget, ensure that all accounts are covered through revenues from fees and license revenue, and that no levy funds will be needed. This is very unusual because most planning and zoning offices do take some levy funds. And then we're going to continue, or we're going to work with our consultants. You approved that contract earlier today with Bolton and Mank to work on our zoning ordinance and our subdivision ordinance updates.
And as far as solid waste, Continue to reduce overall landfilling of the county's waste through various reduction and processing initiatives. Landfilling continues to increase, and so working in coordination with Tri-County as they're going through their process. Last year this year, we established our own committee, and we'll just continue to push through those initiatives and hopefully identify something for 2026. Other item is to identify a location for a permitted household hazardous waste facility and begin engineering and design. Again, that would be with non-levy dollars. And I've added a fifth here. Continue to work with our GIS department on rolling out our permitting program for solid waste. GIS department recently completed that process and they're fine-tuning it with planning and zoning. And now they're working with our department, and that is saving a substantial amount of dollars because we did not have to outsource that. We have an incredibly talented GIS department. We're taking advantage of their talent and developing that program. So very excited about that happening for solid waste. Any questions?
Questions?
I did have one. And I'm assuming to continue to identify what our relationship is going to continue to be in the future with our Tri-County Solid Waste Group. I think a couple of our staff people are on that subcommittee, looking to see what that.
That's correct, Mr. Chair, Commissioner. It's what is our footprint? Right now, Tri-County consists of half of Sherburne County. And as we take a look at that life after existing Pope Douglas contract, how do we want to be part of Tri-County? How do we want to take advantage of that regional planning and processing? And how, if we do, how do we move waste from the east end of the county where the most populated part? All that is going to be a coordinated effort where it requires us as a county with our planning committee and then working in coordination with Tri-County. A lot of moving parts.
So if we could add that as an item number 5, I think that's important because we are doing the subcommittee work, trying to figure out what this contract might look like when it expires, coming up in Greg, help me with this, 2030?
2031.
31.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we can add it probably as a sub-bullet under 3 since it fits really under that goal, so.
Yep.
I just didn't want to lose it in the plans.
I made the note.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Next, we have Andrew and Gina, and should take this moment to thank Gina for an incredible event yesterday. Very powerful to have the regathering out at the park, and especially nice was the 2 drumming groups, one from the Dakota and one from the Ojibwe tribes. So very, very, very nice event.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Gina.
And I just wanted to add too, it was nice to see that they did an awesome job on the drumming, and even though they were 2 separate drum, and they would just engage. Pretty soon the chairs would start coming over to this group, and it was kind of like a jam session for lack, and they just integrated so well. It's like they had practiced for a long time together, and I don't think that was the case.
No. Morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair, County Board members, Administrator Messel. Thank you for acknowledging that opportunity and gathering that we had yesterday. I'm going to take a page out of the book of Dan Weber and be brief in our comments here. Most of these items are
Wow.
most of these items are not new. They're familiar to the county board. We've had multiple discussions about them. So starting off, we've got the ever-present 169 South 4 interchange and get that substantially completed by the end of next construction season, which is posing to be a daunting task right now, given the the grant agreements and the funding. So we're working through that and are being diligent about getting that completed with the new relationship between FHWA and Sherburne County. Secondly, continue to work with MnDOT and others, I shall say, to solicit funds for the Trunk Highway 10 and CASA 11 interchange grade separation safety and mobility project. We're actively seeking funding from both the state and the federal level for this. We currently have funds to complete the preliminary and engineering and environmental documentation, looking to further that with property acquisition and final design funds, and then start pounding on doors looking for some construction funding in regards to that project.
Mr. Chair, real quick, and that grant dollar, that came from BNSF on what we are doing in our preliminary?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Danielowski, so those funds actually came from FRA, the Federal Rail Authority, through
Okay.
the Railroad Crossing Elimination Program. So Burlington Northern is a partner and obviously had quite a bit to say in regards to that project and provided letters of support.
Any dollar support possibly?
I will say, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Danielowski, I will say that probably not for design or property acquisition, but under Minnesota state statute, they are required to provide up to 5% of the new bridge crossing.
Okay.
So, which isn't a lot. It is a minimum of 5%. They always have the opportunity to provide more, but we all know how that works.
Yes.
Well, it's a little bit of help at least.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yep. The third one is just continuing to look for future properties for the Zimmerman Public Works facility and take advantage of that and continue to work on the spatial needs study that was completed for the Zimmerman facility and what that looks like as we continue to grow as a county and our traffic volumes and demand on the roadways continues to grow from a maintenance perspective, but also a user perspective as well. Maybe I'll transition very quickly into the park stuff. If there are any specific questions, then we'll call on Gina to help answer those. But you can see a focus on our parks and working on enhancing the parks that we currently have with the landscape restoration on the newly acquired portion of Two Inlets Park. Also continuing to improve and develop those nature-based recreations and self-guided learning. Hopefully, starting to dip our toe into some programming and what that wants to look like in and around that park and that area, through some partnerships with different communities and different community members as well. And then continue to enhance our park amenities to support the visitors and the constituents of Sherburne County through nature-based recreation and other accessibility opportunities that we see as a demand and what we've known to be true based on some previous studies and polls and feedback and comments through a variety of plans. So with that, I will open it to any questions.
I just wanted to say too that I appreciate the extra use of the Facebook page and the announcements of the different things that are happening at some of the parks, especially how we're working on getting rid of buckthorn by using goats out at Bridgeview Park. Someone did comment on that posting that, because that is kind of in a neighborhood area, that one of the goats, and they put the tag number of the goat, got out, but they got the goat back in. So I just thought that was very cute. And then some of the other things that are posted, I think that's getting out to the community. I think they appreciate those announcements. And then also, could you speak a little more at the moment? I know that we're going over priorities here, but in regards to the work that's happening on County Road 4 in Zimmerman, and now also with the upcoming bridge replacement on County Road 15, and how that might impact people's ability to maneuver around those areas. I think it's important that we stay on top of that with postings as well, because there's already been comments about the bridge, and also making sure people understand that we are all tied to a small window of opportunity to get these projects done in the summer. And yes, sometimes does it look like it's not been planned out well, but with what our Mother Nature gives us, we have to work the best we can, as fast as we can, to get these jobs done.
Sure. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Danielowski, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, so with County Road 4 in Zimmerman, so as Bruce mentioned earlier, we're disappointed. They should not have been allowed to put that detour up without having full detour signing in place. So we're continuing to work diligently with the community, the business owners, and that opportunity there as far as trying to minimize the impacts. Roads are a consumable product, unfortunately. I wish I could build them once, but then I would be out of a job. So we will continue to lean on some of our social media opportunities, both internal and external, which we're utilizing up in the Zimmerman area. And whenever at all possible, we try to keep the roads open. There are a number of projects when we don't have that luxury, unfortunately, so we rely on detours. We post closures at least 7 days in advance to try to catch everybody that's potentially utilizing that area on the road itself through some construction signing and changeable message boards. So there's a number of opportunities that we have to be able to get that information out. We'd also look towards the public too. I mean, talk to your neighbors, let people know if they've not heard about it or think they haven't heard about it, and you might know something about it. We look for that as well, just kind of some grassroots efforts there too. So we'll continue working on that more diligently to try to get the information out to as many individuals as possible and hopefully try to minimize that impact.
Yeah, but I appreciate that because with the bridge replacement on 15, a lot of people use 15 to get over to Zimmerman on County Road 4. And so getting that information to say, hey, if you're using 15, this is where the detour is gonna go, take this, just so they know, because it is a major connection to County Road 4.
Sure.
So thank you for doing that, and keep the website updated as well. People do post that also.
Sure. And Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Danielowski, maybe if I can lean on Drew a little bit, maybe we can get a tighter line to some of the mapping apps. I know there's some opportunities there. I think I recently just heard that Ramsey County maybe has got some system in place with Google Maps, and which also owns Waze, to be able to get construction information to them that will then work into the routing of people's directions as they enter it into the app.
Yeah, because then it looks like, I mean, I'm gonna go back to the 169 and how Elk River managed that project. And it was so positive engagement from the public in interaction. And if we can just stay on top of keeping everybody informed, keeping it positive, recognizing that we all know that this is a pain, but the result in the end will be worth it. And here's opportunities you can take to get around these work zones.
Sure. Thank you.
Other questions?
All right, next is County Recorder.
Good morning, Commissioners. Very brief update for you regarding 2026 budget priorities. With 3 newer employees in my office, one being probationary, a lot of our focus is on cross-training folks. We have a wide variety of duties that we perform, including real estate and vitals and passport operations, and we just want to get those 3 new ones all up to speed so that they are valuable employees that can be placed anywhere. And then the second one is to ensure that we have enough passport acceptance agents on staff to meet the demands of our public. We have very cyclical busy times and slower times with passports, and we broke that this year. As you can imagine, with Real ID and Enhanced ID, a lot of folks were frustrated at the length of time and the hoops they had to jump through to get that, and sometimes a passport is a better alternative. You can usually get it faster and sometimes with less documentation. So we saw our numbers spike dramatically in April, which has never happened before. So again, just to make sure that we have enough acceptance agents to handle that demand. Otherwise, no major projects planned for 2026, certainly none that would impact the levy. Any questions that you might have?
Questions for Michelle?
Great, thank you so much.
And now the voice of Sherburne County, Larry Fonder. He's the media star when Dave Unze needs somebody to voice over something.
It's only happened once. And you'll notice I did wear the bow tie because nothing says budget like thick black glasses and a bow tie. So, and it is tied by hand, by my own hands, as a matter of fact. Basically, when you look at our three budget priorities for 2026, outreach, operations, and training and accreditations. Outreach, really what we're looking at is increasing awareness. So increasing marketing and community education to strengthen partnerships with county veteran-owned businesses and service organizations to increase awareness of services. One of the main priorities of increasing awareness, one, it brings more veterans in, but two, it counters a lot of the malicious activities of claim sharks. So a claim shark is an unaccredited agent that represents veterans with predatory contracts illegally to the VA, and then our veterans get stuck in these contracts that they can't get out of. It's basically like borrowing money from a loan shark. So there's no regulation on what they can charge, and there's a lot of manipulation. So to counter that, it's getting the awareness out there. So if people, because these are multi-million, if not multi-billion-dollar organizations that spend a lot of time and money on YouTube advertisements and how to get you to 100% and a lot of false promises. So locally, we can try to counter that with getting to our veterans a bit more with marketing and trying to make them aware of our services. The other one is just be prepared in our operations. One, taking a look at our data management system. So we have a pretty good system, but I'm finding it looks like we have the kind of the baseline system. So when it comes to reports and manipulation of the data, there's some challenges there, and it looks like those all become upgrades, if you will, with the system. So I'll work with IT on taking a look at that. But the other is building on our successes and allocating resource for assistance to homeless and vulnerable veterans and family members. So we can expect a demand in this if there's changes to things like federal health care programs, food assistance programs. So if people are vulnerable and on the edge, especially at income, and now look at new resources where they can help to increase their income or gain access to another form of healthcare or VA healthcare. So we expect veterans like that to be coming through our door. In addition, the state, it's still unclear how much the state is fully funded to organizations like the Minnesota Assistance Council for Veterans and what resources they'll have for housing homeless veterans as well. And then finally, it's just keeping our folks as the best trained. With the passing of the PACT Act in August of 2022, claims have become inherently more complicated and more complex and require a lot more knowledge, creativity, and time from our service officers. And the Veterans Benefits Administration's accuracy declined. So after the PACT Act, they went from 90% accurate on claims. They're down to 80% now on their accuracy for claims. And this I would expect this trend not to change, given that they're going to get rid of 83,000 more employees by August, and they've already lost a lot due to brain drain. So our service officers are not just advocates, we're also becoming the quality assurance folks. So that's where I want to ensure that we're taking advantage of all the opportunities to train our folks beyond just the minimum requirements of 20 hours of professional training each year. And happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Larry?
I just want just a comment. Thank you for being proactive on knowing what is probably going to be coming at you to be able to continue to provide the services that we owe our veterans and their families. So thank you so much for being on top of that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And last but not least, befitting the largest department, we have the most number of goals. And I think Commander Zawacki is going to present for Sheriff Brott.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Sheriff's Office has identified 9 budget priorities. Number 1, which is probably one of the major priorities, is to continue to proactively address recruitment and retention challenges within the area of law enforcement. The numbers of people entering the field is dire, and people are retiring at a rapid level, so that's a very important priority. To continue to support the health and wellness of law enforcement personnel through the Sheriff's Office Wellness Program, including annual checkup from the neck up opportunities for all staff. Secure funding for a jail remodel project that includes upgrade to booking, Sally Port, and special housing areas with dedicated space for mental health programming. Number 4, ensure compliance and enhance criminal justice data network security requirements. Number 5, continue the implementation of a fully operational secondary PSAP location in Zimmerman. Number 6, maintain accreditation standards for both the jail and dispatch center. Number 7, prioritize the safety and well-being of the Sherburne County residents by ensuring the maintenance and readiness of essential law enforcement tools and equipment. Number 8, continue to address the increasing number of mental health-related calls and cases through the support of the trauma advocate. And number 9, address the ongoing reliance of levy funding for jail staffing through the enterprise fund. Any questions?
Questions for Ben?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Felber?
I just have one quick comment for the whole board. Number 1 is going to cost us money down the line. There's just really no way around that. So just kind of throwing that out there on behalf. The way that the market has become so competitive for law enforcement officers that we're just basically going to have to spend more money to get the really good quality people that we want here in Sherburne County.
Thank you. Any other ones? Questions, comments? Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
It's a long list, but it's a very important list. All of these things are critical.
So that gives you a flavor of kind of, again, the strategic, what we see as the priorities under the strategic plan moving forward. Obviously, the budget conversation we're going to have is going to be shifting those priorities to fit whatever their affordability is. So appreciate the extra time. Sorry we went long, but I think it's important that we get a chance here to give you a thought as we plan for your budget discussions.
One real quick thought. Any YouTube videos coming up in recruitment? I see a lot of them on Facebook. They're just smiling back. Come on, Steve.
I'll defer to Joel and Tammy to work on that, so.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just a couple of comments from my perspective. One is I appreciate the thoughtfulness of all the department heads of what they put in for where they see the priorities moving forward. I don't want to pretend that the budget discussions moving forward are going to be easy. I think we need to understand we are entering a period of austerity, as one of my previous bosses used to call it. So they are going to be difficult discussions. I don't see anything on here that anyone put on here as frivolous.
No.
Right? So it's very thoughtful, but I will say, in my personal opinion, no one's going to get as much money as they think they need. We're going to have to be very thoughtful about what the priorities are and where the money gets spent, because it's going to be a very, very challenging discussion. That being said, I just want to emphasize that I do appreciate the work that has gone into this thus far. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and again, we're not tying these to any specific budget target. Just so you know, since we spoke about this in the summer, we're really looking at kind of 2, maybe 3, what I'll call targets as the departments put their budget together. One was essentially our status quo, what we're doing now, plus or minus what sunsets or what's coming online that's already been approved. One where we said we just gave them a levy target of 3%, which was just kind of to see where it's at. And then the other one is how would we basically take on some of the state shifts without levy increases. So it's not been a pleasant exercise to do the budget. I think that targeting these bullets was a little more pleasant for your staff. So I think we're aware of where we're going with the budget conversation.
Okay. That being said, we move on to our commissioner correspondence. Commissioner Felber, you're first.
Let me get my screen up here. All right. Let's see. On 5/20, I had the Great River Regional Library Board Finance Committee and the Great River Regional Library Board. Probably highlight the Youth Advisory Council, which is 14 members from 6 counties. They reported on their survey, and probably the most interesting part of it is that the kids that they were surveying wanted actual books, which is very encouraging for me, that they would the kids would be asking for actual books rather than more digital stuff. The financials for the board overall, the audit was clean. Legacy funding passed it at the state level. And then we appointed Holly Lammers to the CMLE grant committee, which is a good thing. She'll be an asset there. AMC Solid Waste, the Association of Minnesota County Solid Waste Board. Once again, I've got some stuff I'll share with the rest. There was some folks from National Waste and Recycling Association, some more discussion on recycling from waste management, and then some discussion about solid waste in an ash facility that they're working on. One of the things that they're worried about is having to possibly switch to shifting liquid from some of these facilities to actually move them out of state. Won't be able to process it inside the state, but that's kind of an ongoing issue. I did the visit with Congressman Emmer's office and our lobbyist in the jail, and that was a very good visit. And it's always interesting to see people who haven't been in a jail or haven't been in a jail facility before and how they react to the inside of the facility. It's always really good information. Went to the Orac Township meeting to discuss County Road 75, which is ongoing. Pope Douglas joint meeting. You see report on operation. MCIC dropped insuring waste facilities, so the 22 insurance went up. We're working on our general contract extension. There's a lot of discussion on that. I am on the board, the subcommittee that'll be working on upcoming issues in that contract. I went on a tour again of Pope Douglas to see the new equipment that they put in. It's really fascinating. They have a computer-driven machinery that using puffs of air in computer opticals, and I don't understand exactly how it works, but it's able to actually sort different types of recyclable plastics. Like it's able to take out like the yogurt cups and set them aside for a different type of recycling versus the bottles. It's just fascinating at the equipment that keeps coming out. We're getting better and better at reducing the amount of stuff that is going through our landfills if we can get the waste into a facility like that that is able to sort it and then burn the stuff that can't be recycled or landfill some things that can't be burned or recycled. But it really is they're doing a lot of really great work out there, and I want to make sure that we still continue with that. Other than that, I worked on County Road 75 issues. I donated some blood and communicated with Emmer staff on some other issues other than the jail. And that would really be all I have.
Commissioner Holmes, it looks like he's ready.
Yeah, I'll go real quick. So just a couple of things. One is it was mostly constituent issues. I want to thank the reaction of the county. It was unfortunate that we didn't that the detour signs up in Zimmerman didn't go up initially as they were intended to. But I appreciate the reaction to get those up once we realized that there was an issue. So I worked on that, and then we also just for future reference for the board. There's a program called Skywatch, which is it's a series of volunteers that work watching for severe weather, and then they communicate back through actually ham radio. We'll be seeing something coming forward to us on moving the location of the existing tower for that radio. So just be aware that that'll be coming down the road. And then the rest of it for me was I was out of town on a personal note because my oldest daughter finished her PhD in archaeology. So we did that.
Round of applause.
Really?
Commissioner Schumacher.
Yep. I started with the Livonia Township Joint Meeting for Planning and Zoning. It actually went well. Staff came, they had a lot of information that they were able to share and some things that they were able to catch back up on. Hopefully that can remend back the planning and zoning conversations. I think that through the Bolton Minks principle, that if they lead off with that principal person being from a township, right? Instead of always getting information coming from the county or getting it from a city person like me now, I guess, or, you know, like they lead off in that they live that life. I think that matters a lot. And I think that the Livonia Town Board meeting and Dan did a great job there and kind of going through some of the discussion points that they had. I went to the Princeton City Council meeting to talk about County Road 29 and County Road 2 project as a kickoff. As you know, that construction is the main artery to come into downtown Southside Princeton, and, you know, rechanging that the turn lane, and then of course had some very, very great things with Dave Rodell, who put that stoplight up himself at a different firm, and now he's redoing it and redesigning it for the county. So it's actually really fun, especially since he's the most famous civil engineer within District 5. Then the landfill, we were gonna go to do a landfill tour, but they have an ongoing investigation there, as most I can say publicly here, but we're going to reschedule the landfill tour for waste management coming up. It was going to be on Monday, and so that'll be coming back forward for us to go back and tour that. And then a lot of constituent conversations on Zimmerman. There isn't a better way. You know, you would like to say that if we could only do the one roundabout, it would have been better, but there just isn't. You need to do them both together, and there just isn't another corridor through that, but that'll continue the constituent calls. I just took 2 more while we were at the county board meeting, which I'll reply back to, and then get back over there today, which clearly I drive home that way. So with that, that's all I had. And I wanted to say that to lead off what Andrew said, you know, when there was a problem, you know, our staff did do an excellent job, you know, with Dave Rodell and Andrew and Dan Weber to get it addressed on the detour signs, because they weren't there. And the guys that are working on the job, it's a management thing. The guys that are working on that job, they were there at 9 o'clock at night, just wrenching on the machines and making sure this thing's gonna work, not to get us delayed and behind, because that would be the worst thing that can happen, is if the guys that are there working on this job get delayed and behind. It's kind of a management leadership role in the construction process that we're struggling with, and we will overcome that.
Rand.
Positiveness.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Light schedule, the holiday that was in there and stuff. May 21st, I attended the Sub-Coalition meeting. We were in part 2 of working on our strategy and ideas to go forward, to continue identifying what it is that we are prioritizing in alcohol, tobacco, and the marijuana cannabis issues. So that was a couple hours of working through that process. Also, that day met with the Big Lake City Administrator, just to touch base on what's happening in the city and anything that we could partner with from the county aspect. May 28th, Big Lake Township meeting, and that there was a gentleman there that I think you all seen the emails that came through with that research as to why there was a change in setbacks in 1994. This gentleman happens to live by the Sand Dune State Forest, and so could not quite understand why there was a need for a 100-foot setback that is precipitating his issue with trying to put a house on the property, and researching back as to why it was a 100-foot setback. And I think we all seen the emails explaining that. So we'll move forward in working with the state in regards to that issue. And the 29th, Greg gave a good update on the Pope Douglas joint meeting that we had up in Alexandria. I was not able to take the tour for a second time, but I knew Greg would absorb everything and give a great report back. That facility is amazing. It is amazing to see what it is doing. It's a good partnership for what we do provide for our waste to it. And in looking to decide how our partnership is going to go in the future is definitely a priority. And then attended the regathering at Two Inlets yesterday. It was a really good event. Gina did a great job on putting that together along with her staff. And it's just really a positive engagement with our partners in the Native community, and they appreciate that openness that we have, and they really feel that we're in this for the right reasons, and they can feel that. So it's really good to see how we're, I think, building a really good relationship of trust and going forward and honoring that site in what we're going to develop there. So I think that was pretty much it for me.
Okay, for me, in some circles, it's National Egg Day today. For all of you that are really curious about that. On 5/22, I went to the Primacy Group fundraiser, which was primarily for Judy Fedorchak, but Tom Emmer was there, spoke. We didn't get to speak directly to Tom, but he knew which Sherburne County was well represented there, which I think is vitally important. I did the Luke Sandlin tour with Congressman Emmer's office with Greg, and I was one of those individuals that had never been into jail before, so I was probably a little apprehensive in some of the door. Every time a door would go behind you, it was locked and closed. That was different, to say the least. On the 28th, I hosted a town hall out at Blue Hill, which was very lightly attended, but I still chose to do it anyway. It was out at the Oak Savannah Learning Center. Also on the 2nd, I did the regathering at Two Inlets with Rand. We spoke about that. I also spent a half an hour Zoom call with Amy Klobuchar's office to set up her visit, which never happened. So there you go. That's what I did. And I think now we'll just take a quick 5-minute break, reconvene for our workshop. Is that all right, Greg?
Works for me. Yep, works for me.
All righty.